more thing to say. I'm not worried about it in this situation because I know the rope is strong enough. I know the tow plates are strong enough.
So be standing here?
Yeah. The danger zone in this type of situation is two circles from each end of the rope that are the length of the rope. So if this is a 20-foot rope, a circle 20-foot in diameter from that point and a circle 20-foot diameter from this point is the danger zone. So you can back up a foot or two. That's good. And you can put yours in drive now and let it idle. Okay, tires aren't spinning, but that's fine. No, that's fine. So you can. Okay, so go ahead and go then. Just a nice easy tug. Keep going.
All clear.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys. What are you talking about?
All young men with suits and ties, just sitting in the crowd smoking big cigars. I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one on the lady that will bring it down. There's a joint on the corner where the big boys play, where the whiskey's running like the rivers, but they all never come for the booze and bass. I'm the one, I'm the lady that'll rock this place. That'll rock this place. That'll rock this place. Rock this place.
Ring shackle on here, and hers is loose. But even if they're not loose, sometimes taking this off and putting it on is you could. It's kind of hard to do that. So this right here.
Okay, I thought there was one on the bottom too.
You could. This hook right here can also act as a hook. So I can either do this and put it back on. Again, we're not in a hurry. Nobody's on fire. Nobody's injured. So I can either do it like that, or I can, her bumper, I can't get that in there. Again, remember, when we're pulling on these, if they're already super tight, otherwise a little bit of a turn back, but I can put this on. Be mindful of which hole I'm putting it in. Okay, I didn't say that really on Facebook Live. I really didn't.
I had a snicker.
And then how this is gonna pull, it's locked in, it's gonna pull. So when it pulls this way, this is all locked in, no way for it to slip out. All right. Keep going. Okay, rope's tight, come on back a couple feet. All right. Go ahead and test it out. See, check it. putting a snatch block in it or doubling the lines, like with that pulley there or that little snatch block, it doubles our ability. Now, it might not exactly be double, but in a nutshell, we're doubling it so that our winch is more capable to pull at twice as much, essentially.
To try to use snatch blocks, we will just double up ATVs anyway. Because we just.
So I did that
it
to make
was
sure
scarier.
that it's going to break there.
Yeah.
Well, sharp edges, even rocks, abrasions against trees, like if you're using
In
the
that pole
strap
can
around.
snap.
Yep.
Okay.
Any type of edge or abrasion
Okay.
can create a risk.
Okay.
That'll be or knots.
Okay.
Again, like I talked about knots. So all of those things are the potential points that create a hazard in using them. Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, if there was a big rock right here,
Yeah.
and this was going to be running over this rock like this,
Yep.
you know, if my foot's a rock, it could potentially cut the
Okay.
rope
Yep.
right there. That's what these little covers are for, is to
Okay.
help.
I got those with my winch, but I didn't know what they were for.
Yep.
It's like a Velcro, so you would
Yep.
just
Right.
put it on.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Now, the thing is yeah, when you're pulling your winch line back in, you
It's
know,
gonna move
you
anyway.
don't want to suck it back in.
Yep.
Okay.
But usually, if you put it here over that point,
Okay.
you know, it may pull it, but
A little bit of that picture will be
Which
Okay.
brings me to another point that I forgot to talk about, and again, we can talk about it later when we get more into winching. But the other thing is, with synthetic rope, it's not as big a deal, but with steel cable, a lot of times putting something over and around the cable is a good idea. What it does is it kind of slows down the reaction.
It absorbs energy.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why Indy cars have all your race cars have come parts, because it's releasing the energy that is, from the impact or whatever. And this is an impact of sorts.
Yeah, kind of a reverse impact, you know. But so again, with synthetic winch rope or winch line, it's not as big a deal because this is designed to absorb the energy all in itself. It's woven, so when you pull it, it's kind of like a Chinese finger puzzle. You know, when it pulls, it gets smaller and tighter, and then as that energy is pushed the other way, it will release and get bigger, and that absorbs that energy, so it doesn't react quite as much as the straps do. So anyway, we can go ahead and break this one. We got a little red clevis there, just to kind of show you how far this strap will stretch. So again, the danger zone would be a circle from that tree, the length to this tree, around that tree, and the length that we have out here around this tree too. So probably, back the other
if
side of the
that's-
mud puddle is actually the best.
Yeah. Tight. It goes.
Even when you're ready for it, you're not really ready for it.
You, I don't know if that's where it was.
Yeah,
That's where it started.
that's where
Okay.
it started.
It probably stretched out to
Right about where your foot is.
probably stretched out to about here before it, and that wasn't a whole lot of tension. The record was, you could hear it creaking a little bit and stuff like that, but that wasn't a whole lot of tension. That didn't even make the winch start to groan. So, but you saw the reaction. The strap with the steel clevis in it recoiled all the way to that tree. Might even hit the tree, I don't know. And even the winch rope and all of that rigging recoiled all the way to that tree. So had it had a lot more tension on it, it could have recoiled even farther than that. And potentially, if that tree was a vehicle, it could have recoiled with some severe impact into that vehicle. Same thing on this end. So it gives you an idea of what
And there
can
has
happen.
been times where people will have this metal D-ring, and when it recoils back, it's through their windshield.
You know what? And I've seen it. It's probably been
I mean,
forever ago. They lift the hood.
Right.
And is that
on a
would that-
winching situation? It's
Another line.
it's not a bad idea to lift the hood. Again, if it's gonna, whether it dents your hood or plus your windshield,
Yeah, which is
Okay.
worse.
which is worse? I mean, but if you're in the vehicle,
And I think that's where I've seen it, where they
yes.
were in the vehicle.
if you're
lifted
in the
hood.
vehicle, then it's the other thing though is if you're winching yourself out, now your hood is an obstruction.
Exactly.
So again, it's kind of personal preference on what you want to do as a technique.
Would that be
And-
more when they were using
Steel cable.
the steel cable?
Yes,
You've got more of a potential
yeah,
for that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how
'cause-
many people here have winches?
I will. Sitting in the front entryway.
Yay! Jen, do you have synthetic line or steel line?
Synthetic, yes.
Synthetic.
Synthetic.
I don't know when
Okay.
It'll be steel.
I think mine's steel.
Okay.
So
But it's replaceable. You can just buy the line
yep.
if
You
you
can.
wanted to do that.
And
I used steel line for years and
Yeah.
years and years.
Everyone did.
Um,
Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's
a
steel.
lot of them come now with synthetic, or there are still like Smitty built. You can have the option. I think the difference between a Smitty built steel cable and synthetic cable winch is about $150, which is the price of the line. Now, if buy the best that you can afford, I always recommend good American-made products. So, there are cheaper synthetic lines on Amazon. But if you can afford a good quality one, I highly recommend it. But understand that buy the best that you can afford at the time. The other thing with steel cable that you have to watch out for is always wear gloves. Because once you unwrap that steel cable the first time, there are little pricklies all over it. It's almost like it's a barbed wire fence.
So now this is the kinetic rope. He's still pulling on the winch. The red shackle is where it started, so it's pulling.
Sorry, we're gonna. I don't want to pull this sleeve through the pulley.
Yeah, that's the always watch everything. I don't know. I come in and I was like,
We keep backing up. Farther and farther. Wow.
that was
Here. Now it's all by the knot. And that was a little bit more tension than the first one. That's because we only cut the strap about a quarter of the way through instead of halfway through. So it was quite a bit more tension than the first one. But as you can see, the ropes, stretch out and recoil, just like the straps do. Probably a little more stretch, but they will recoil.
There's a lot of energy that's contained in these things.
It's kind of like pulling a rubber band between your fingers and the rubber band breaks. It's the same thing. But most of the winches you'll run into that you have or that you will purchase are electric winches. So there's an electric motor. In this case, it's on this one. It's right here. It's usually in line with the drum. The one on Gene's motor is right here. And battery cables go to that electric motor to supply it with power. Connections on the battery cables are key to how well the winch is going to perform. You want to connect it directly to the battery to give it the least amount of resistance in pulling its electrical power. You want to connect the ground to the battery, not rely on the vehicle's bumper, frame, etc., as the ground. Again, every connection adds resistance. So. So if you'll see here, Gene's is connected straight to the battery. Here's the negative cable. Here's the positive cable. This winch also has 3 self-resetting circuit breakers in it. So each circuit breaker is probably like a 50 amp circuit breaker. My guess, maybe 100 amp, maybe 75 amp. I'm not 100% sure. But that's protection on the circuit. So if he overheats the winch and it starts to draw too much power, these 3 that are stacked parallel provide the 3 times what each one is. So if each one is 50 amp circuit breaker, he has the ability to draw 150 amps to the winch. And then as soon as one of these opens up, or as soon as he draws too much, one of these will open up, and then they won't reset or they won't close again until they cool down. So that's a protection device to keep you from, ruining your winch or overheating it, melting the cables, catching fire, something like that. It isn't always 100%. You can still melt cables. You can still overheat your winch motor even with this protection in there, because sometimes these don't always open up, or only one of them opens up and the other 2 stay closed or something like that. So it's a good safety feature to have. They come with most of the winches, but it's not 100% effective. So just keep that in mind. So the vehicle doesn't have to be running to use a winch, but you will be relying on whatever energy is stored in your battery.
And you're not restoring it.
And you're not restoring it. So you can deplete that energy rather quickly.
Right.
And if you deplete it below a certain amount, you won't be able to get the vehicle started.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And today's vehicles, most of your newer Jeeps, that battery doesn't have to be totally dead before it won't start the vehicle. It only has to be below 10.5 volts. Anything below 10.5 volts in your newer vehicles with computers will shut it down because the computers can't talk to each other. That's
how we need.
Yeah, the communication programs that are designed into the vehicles now are only able to communicate effectively between 10.5 and 15.5 volts. So if a vehicle is overcharging more than 15.5 volts, that communication is not reliable. If it's less than 10.5 volts, that communication is not reliable. It's just like having a surge on a desktop computer. Okay. Under power, in reverse mode. Yep, just like that.
Oh, do they all come with little remotes?
Not all.
No, usually you have a tethered one.
Okay.
I had a tethered one, but this was a Badlands winch, and so for $30, I got the wireless, and I just disconnect it, throw it on the center console.
Yeah. So normally this would be mounted somewhere.
Okay.
But Gene just plugs it into where and it does get plugged into where the tethered remote would be. I have a couple of them for mine, but neither one of them function right now, so I'm not even sure where they are.
My problem is when I don't use it often enough, and then when I go to use my wireless, the batteries are dead.
Oh,
Yeah. So he just keeps this in the vehicle just like you would a tethered remote, and when he needs to use it, he brings it out, plugs it in, and uses the... So anyway, so there's a power out, and that's what he did. Then there's also a free spool. So in this particular winch, this is the free spool here. There's usually indications on top of the winch in which is free spool and which is engagement. to where the gears are engaged and the cable will not move freely. So that right there on his winch is free spool. So now we can actually pull the cable out by hand. The drum is disconnected from the motor and the gears, and it's in a free motion. So if you need to pull out winch cable for a long distance or whatever, that's the best way to do it. Then you aren't using up battery, you aren't using up a whole lot of time, because pulling it out by hand is much faster than winching, than powering it out. But there's ability to power it out.
Yeah, that was
Backwards.
yeah.
So then you can engage it and power it back in. And this is where most people can get hurt real easy. You want to be careful pulling it in, because if your hand sticks to the cable or the rope or whatever, it can suck your hand in there real quick. The motors don't stop immediately when the button is released. They kind of have a little bit of a run on. So be mindful of that. A lot of the winch companies have little straps that you can put over the end of the hook, so you're a foot or so away, or using a tree protector or something like that is sometimes a good idea. It's not a good idea to be doing exactly what I was doing when you get too close. Do as I say, not as I do. Is probably the most common style that you'll run into as a winch accessory for the general public, and that's like this Rhino one here. This Rhino one is specifically designed to be a little bit better on synthetic winch line. The actual pulley in here is a plastic fiber, whatever you want to call it, pulley instead of a steel one. So that's a little bit more forgiving or better for the synthetic winch line, or at least I'm assuming that that's the reason for that. I guess I never really asked, but
Yeah, that's what it's for.
yeah. So this is a scissor style. So the scissor style opens up like that, and then you can put your winch line or your cable over the pulley, close it back up, and then whatever attaching point that you have, whether it's a clevis or a hook or whatever, holds that both of them, that scissors portion together. Okay, so that's the most common one that you'll see. This is a different shape than a lot of them. Most of them are just rectangular, and they work really good. There are different ratings depending on the size of them. The diameter of the pulley is usually what the factor that creates the different rating. So the smaller the pulley, usually the smaller the rating. The larger the pulley, the larger the rating. Then there's other kinds. This is real common used in the tow truck world, is this type of style. Again, they make all kinds of different sizes like this. You don't often see these for sale at off-road 4x4 shops or that. This is, like I say, more of a tow truck recovery type style, and they all have ratings that are rated on the side of them. This one comes apart a little bit differently. It's still kind of a scissor style, but it has a bolt here that gets taken out, and then the scissors opens up and closes back up. But again, you won't often see these used in the off-road world. I use them all the time just because, again, I'm a tow truck and I know where to get them, and some of them get given to me all the time. This one comes with an accessory kit that you buy for that big, huge Warren 12,000 pound winch, and it is a very large one rated for that huge winch. This one comes apart a little bit differently. As you can see here, we have a pin on one side. It has a little, I don't know what you call it, L piece that folds over.
Locking piece.
Yep, that comes out, and then your attaching point opens up, a little cable guide here opens up, and then we're at the pulley. And the cable can go in there, and then this can close up, this can close up, and the pin can go back in. And that's the way that one functions. So it goes through the center. And now you effectively have a snatch block with an attaching point. The problem is that it's not guided by anything. So when using these like this, they do work, but you have to be real mindful and pay real attention to whether or not that rope is still in the groove, whether the pulley is doing its job, spinning, not cocked off to the side, not, because as soon as it cocks off to the side like that, that's when the rope can come out, So they work fine as long as the tension is steady on them and they have tension. As soon as that tension gets released, they can often come out of position or be out of position. And then if you're still winching or you still need to winch, you have to, again, re-rig it, reset it up and stuff, get a little bit of tension on it, to hold it in place before you start pulling a lot.
This is going on the LROC YouTube page.
We got a tree. Oh, wait, no, hang on. We got the tree, right? We got it over there. We're going to take and pull it here.
Okay.
So it ends up perpendicular to the trail.
All
or
right.
parallel to the trail.
All right.
If I die, my number's up. I've been on.
We'll show you. First thing I want to say is I didn't grab the choker chain that I wanted to use. Well, we were, because it's still on the deck of the wrecker, so we're going to use this one. This is not a good idea to use a clevis through a chain link like this, but we're going to do it in this situation because I forgot to bring the right chain. So we are going to actually use this through here.
Well, and the tree's not real heavy.
And the tree's not real heavy, so I'm not worried about it, but it just generally in practice it's not a good idea, especially on a link that's one of these type links. If it's a welded loop like this one, actually this one wouldn't be bad to do, wouldn't be as bad to do that with. But anyway, so go ahead and put your winch in free spool and pull out the rope. Stump, and we're going to put the choker around the end of the tree.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
And choke it tight, and then we're going to
Because it's so thin.
we can either do it through the, so let's do it, oh no, we won't with the 5/8 one. The 5/8 one won't fit like that, so it will fit like.
Yep. That's one of the reasons why I like this one, because it's so versatile depending on what equipment everyone has.
Right, so it will fit like that, and we'll rig that up. And turn the front end of the Jeep to be more in line with the direction that we're pulling, and that will help the winch rope or cable, if it were cable, to spool onto the drum better. and not all bunch up on one side. If we still had the front of the Jeep in line with the trail, then most of the cable or winch rope would want to wind up on the drum all on one side. And we have a choker chain on the log, single line, because this isn't going to be a very hard pull at all. So go ahead and engage your free spool back in if you haven't already. Again, we don't have this isn't going to be a real hard or long pull, but she's in park. She has the parking brake on, so if you want, you can start it back up again to let the battery let it charge. It's not going to be too awful hard or long, but it's a good practice to have it running. And go ahead and
Danger zone.
yeah, we're all in the danger zone right now, but that's fine. So go ahead and put some tension on it.
Come on, I'm good. If this is going on YouTube, we have to be good models.
You're learning. Well, we don't have any tension on it yet, so it's not dangerous until you get tension on it. And just because it's off the ground doesn't necessarily mean it has tension on it. That's just enough tension to hold it up off the ground. So that's where we're at right now. Any winching situation, once you get enough tension on it to lift it up off of the ground and everything's in place, you don't have to get real close to it, but just take a look at the situation, see if all the rigging is still correct. Especially when you're using one of those, if you're using one of those aluminum discs as a snatch block. That's the time to take a look and see that everything is still in place in the way it's supposed to be to work properly. So now you can go ahead and tension it in.
There you go.
Are you having fun?
Perfectly went. It's like you did that before. It's like you've done that before. Worked out well.
All right, so that looks pretty good. The tree is completely off of the trail. The trail is now completely passable, and we can release the tension on the cable by backing it up. There we go.
Wrong one. Just kidding.
I do that all the time.
So I'm just holding it back as much as I can. And just guiding it over it a little bit to the left. And now just little taps, little taps. Up, let me out a little bit. It goes the other way. Oh no.
No, that was
Which
right.
one do you want?
The rubber, yeah.
The rubber
Either
part.
way. There you go.
All right, LROC is having their BSF recovery class. We're in the woods right now. We just worked on some winch work. There's Angela in her Jeep. And there's Charity and Lisa and Jackie's down there. So we're heading down to the woods. We're gonna re-spool a winch.
Now sometimes with the synthetic line after you've used it, it's kind of bound up a little bit and it doesn't like to free spool as nicely as Jamie's did. Because it hasn't been as cold. So.
But that's part of the reason why we want to spool it up under tension at least once. Because it stretches out the rope and puts it onto the drum in nice even spacing so it doesn't get before is when you're pulling out your winch line or winch cable, you always want to leave 3 to 5 wraps on the drum. The attaching point of the end of the rope or the cable that attaches it to the drum, the little eyelet or the little pinch thing or whatever it happens to have, has virtually no strength to it. It's way less than the capacity of the pinch. Yeah. So the wraps on the drum is what gives it the friction to have strength. It's kind of like wrapping a rope and putting the pipes around the post or whatever, you know. So that's what it is. So at least 3 to 5 wraps before it gets a lot of tension.
Nice and slow. What is the length of a winch line? Stop.
It varies quite a bit. Some are 50 feet, some are 75 feet, some are 150 feet. I have
Right there?
Yeah. I think I have 150 feet on my rear winch. I think I have 100 feet on my front winch.
All right, Jen, pull.
Yeah, mule! Yeah!
Go, Jen, go.
So I could either move the record down or we can move the Jeep closer.
Come on, Jen.
From this point, what we want to do is we want to back the Jeep back up until we have the length of the rope. Because right now the lower wrap won't have any tension on it. That's good. That's because what do we have here? Okay, so we do not have our rope actually anchored to the drum at all.
Did it come all the way off?
So our spool right here is either not look like that. Yeah. One thing is broken, and it just came out. So there is a hole right there. So this attaching point for the end of the rope is not attached to the drum right here in this hole. Is where this bolt is supposed to squeeze this rope in.
Okay.
So we're going to try and put it back in and then get 3 to 5 wraps on the drum before we put a lot of tension on it. So that's what we need to do first.
So I did the fuel cost at 11 miles.
Okay. All right. So we got the first, 3, 4, 5 wraps here. Nice and even across the drum there.
That's where we were supposed to start, right?
Yeah,
And then it
yeah.
came
So
on.
now we're to the point to where we can put the vehicle in neutral.
Okay.
It can be running, and we can either do it from out here, or we can do it from inside. The thing is out here is, we're going slow enough to where, we can stop and then turn the wheels on the vehicle a little bit one way or the other.
Okay.
If the rope isn't wrapping evenly like we want it to.
You ready?
Yep, we're all hooked up.
So you want to do it from out here? Or you want to do it from
No,
in there?
I'll do it in here.
If you do it from in there, then we need somebody to watch the rope out here
Okay.
and make sure that it's winding properly. So, all right. all the way across, and you can see how we're completely even with the rope here. We don't have any gaps where you can see the drum. It's all nice and tight and even, kind of like a spool of thread. Same thing. And we're all the way to the end now, and it's going to start back the other direction. So when we start back the other direction, what we want to do is we want to turn the wheels just a little bit to the right. So that'll keep the tension a little bit on the left side of the drum, so it keeps spooling wrap after wrap nice and tight. If you get too far to the right when it's coming back to the right, then it'll double up. It'll start to instead of coming all the way across, it'll start wrapping on itself right away again. So that's where you pay attention, you watch. So like I say, you can either, if you do it from inside the vehicle, then you need somebody out here as a spotter. If you do it from outside the vehicle, you can certainly do that because you're not going fast enough to worry about the vehicle taking off. You're winching uphill, so it's always going to have tension on it going backwards.
Do you just run up there and then move the wheel then?
Yeah, and then if that's the case, then when you see it and you need to move the wheel or adjust, you just stop and you reach in and you grab the wheel and you turn it a little bit and keep going. So go ahead. Pull it in. Okay, now we're back on this side of the drum again, and we've wrapped it all the way up, and now it's going to start back going that direction again. So we'll keep doing that.
Did you guide it?
The load isn't too
Did he
much
guide it with his
right now,
hand?
but again, when you're doing this, it's a good idea to stop at least once or twice and let the winch cool down. It's not hot yet at all. This one isn't. But it's a good idea to stop and check to make sure that you're not overheating the winch. Now back up the Jeep a little bit. That's good. Okay, so start spooling in. Come close to the truck, then it's not spooling on real good. Okay, that's good. Now turn to the left quite a bit. Okay, spool in. Keep coming. Oh, back up a little. Okay, you can turn back to the right. Okay. Okay, now hold the brake and spool out a little. We only got a couple feet, that's good. Okay, spool in. That's good. So you hook it to a clevis?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just little taps. That's good. We're all done.
That's beautiful.
Nice.
Ready? You ready? Yeah.
Yeah. That, you know, I definitely was thinking about that whole
We were
snap.
just, that whole thing we just learned about today.
Thank you so much for all the expertise and knowledge.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
awesome.
But, you know,
It's and we never stop learning. I didn't mention it, but I'm still learning things. You know,
Well, I suppose scenarios change all
yeah,
the time too.
right.
So
And products change and everything else. So never think that you
know it all.
know it all. You know,
I
it's
know
like
nothing.
any other situation. There's always room for learning or improvement or
That's true about life in all aspects.
Yeah.
yeah.